Hey, good day, everyone. Uh, I look a little bit sleepy. I'm still trying to integrate my essence back into this physical body. Just woke up a bit ago. Busy, busy night outside of the physical vessel. So sometimes it takes a while to integrate everything back in here and wake up in the physical. A very important thing. I need to touch on this fear thing. What I suggest to you always that there is no reason to have fear. And I sit back here and I say that with full conviction and knowing because I know it is true. And it's because, you know, even before I fully knew this, I had a human experience before I was awakened, and it was all ordained for that to happen. And the human experience that I had just prior to the abrupt awakening, if you will, of me here in the physical, um, I was a target. I was a target by the governments, the banks, all of that. And that is why I am so knowledgeable in that respect as well. And I know what went on and what goes on in respect to that. I became a target. I was hoping for someone to do the interview where I could give this part of the story to many of you as well when I was a target. Very beneficial. And I mean, you look at the end result. I was a target, but here I am, still here against all odds. And when I was human, uh, there were several attempts on this life, but it was by the dark, and what JFK speaks about the secret societies and the clandestine ones. They were very real to the respect that they were real when you thought that they had power over you. But once you become one with God and choose that, they are powerless. And then once you choose God, even though you still have fear reactions and actions in you, then you begin the process of cleaning up these fear aspects. Because at that point, you have enough trust in knowing that you are protected by God while you're here. Then, it proceeds a little bit that you're given the information to empower yourself as the angel. You have to work on these imprinted fear actions and reactions you have, and you have to eradicate them. And for each fear that you let go of, it's replaced by light. It's replaced by your prowess. It's replaced by a stronger connection between you and God and all that you are. And it also introduces you to let you know that it's not just you and God. You're part of a team. You're part of a league of angels, and that you're solely protected. And then you're given a bit more to know that the purpose and the mission you always wondered about. Then you begin to know, yeah, why you are really here. So without rambling on in that respect, I was a target, and perhaps in the near future, someone we will do an interview and I can get a little bit more into that. But that part of this human life before I was awake, and you could write a couple books on it at least. It's just so much happened and it's so lengthy. But having said that, again, you know, once you choose God and your divinity and read the signs, even reflect back in your past here, you know, how some of you were targets. Just look at the very thing that you're here today yet. So, you know, if the dark could have really done anything to you, why are you still here? You know, if the dark is that powerful. And it's because they're not. God is the most powerful, is the omnipotent. And that is the reality of the situation. And, you know, some of this being a target prior to 2012, you know, that was the dark for the most part doing this, for the ones, you know, that were so severely targeted and so many, um, let's say, restrictions upon their financial status and just everything taken away from them. I know as part of my human experience, that's what I had resulted, that everything was pretty well lost. And you know what, I had saved the world for retirement and this sort of things, and it involved the banks and the government, but also these secret societies that John F. K. spoke about. And you know, this is the same thing what Trump is doing today. This whole thing with Trump is about exposing for the last time these secret societies, the elitists, the ones with the money upon the planet. Uh, for anyone that hasn't seen them, yeah, you wouldn't know they existed. Perhaps you'd feel something is you know, they're the way things are run in the society. But if you really didn't see them, you would not know they existed. But I can assure you, yes, they were there, and remnants of them are still here. And this is part of what Trump is cleaning up with these indictments, and you know, the execution order to get rid of the Fed, because actually the Fed is part of that secret society. It's the global bankers and the control of money. And again, you know, that's reflected right down to you. You're only allowed to have so much money. So, you know, this is what we're here to tear down. We're here to break that control of money, and that involves what Trump does here with the indictments and all of this. Now, there were several things happened. You know, some of you have been targeted all your life by the dark, and the reasons for that is, you know, because they also had the ability to move around in time. They were not restricted to one timeline. So, you know, they always had the upper hand by knowing who, um, or a pretty good idea of who would come into their divine prowess. So the dark knew what their light opponents would be, who they would be to a certain degree. But at the end of the day, the strategy of God is just over everything, and it overwhelms the darkness where they have no power. Um, so, anyways, that's why all of you are still here, and you know, I can sit back and fully tell you you are protected, but it's a much quicker process when you stand up and you confirm it to yourself that you're protected. Then it weeds out that doubt. Someone could talk all day to you and tell you that it's real, but you got to do it yourself. That is the quickest and most powerful way. And you know, we can be examples here and appears in that respect that it is true. And but again, that doesn't do what we want it to do. We want you to own your divine sovereignty, your prowess, and know really what you are. If you reflect on all the signs you were given, and you know, stop and think for a bit for yourself, you will see you were given many signs, many reassurances, you know, to keep taking those leaps forward, jumping into your divinity and your prowess. And you know, you have a choice. Yeah, okay. Say you don't trust and don't want to jump forward. Well, you can stay forever in the realm of fear, being controlled, always looking over your shoulder in a state of paranoia, what have you. And really, what kind of a life is that, too? Always looking over your shoulder and afraid. You have a choice, you know, to choose that or to choose the freedom and the magic that's happening on the world, eh, around the world, and choose, you know, your divine comrades that are putting out their stories, you know, choose to live in that magic, in that pure justice of light, and do that. You know, don't give your consent away. You are much more than a human being at this stage. You are no longer human. You have embraced, you know, in the minimum, a small part of your divinity into your physical presence, your physical vessel here. And it's a process. And some of you are right at this time, you know, are at the amazing states that you know that, and you have no fear, and you're just working on some minor little things to strengthen you even more yet. So, again, you know, I can sit back here all day and tell you, but I was a target, and I know all of these dark programs, mind control, all of that. It's all ridiculous, but it's true. But it's ridiculous to me in the sense because I know that it has no power over any of you once you step into your divinity and don't have the fear. And you know, again, the darkness, right at this moment, there is no hid figure of the darkness left on the planet. All of the dark galactic ships, the malevolent ET connections, those are in quarantine. Everything that's happening here is governed by divinity at this time, and the benevolent galactic force are very real, as we know. And many of you have been calling in your ships. You're seeing them and you're feeling them. You're communicating with them. You guys know that it's real, the ones that did it. The ones that haven't done it and are skeptical, I'm telling you, it's very real. And, you know, your time will come when you open up to that. You've had indications and signs in the past that it's true. So I suggest just keep opening up to it. And there is no reason to fear anything. You do what is virtuous. You do what is right in your heart. That is your divinity. You morally and ethically behave and you embrace that divine part of you. That is what is right. And you can look at 99% of the humans on the planet and they'll tell you they just want to have peace and love and harmony because that's what is instilled in you, what you are. And we are going towards that. And everyone can build that and create it. But what you got to do is take the fear out of existence because the fear is its themes. It's an energy that is kept alive that will continue to suppress you. So you got to break it. You break the chains from that fear and show as many as you can how to do it and what to do it. You know, it is a process, but again, it can easily be broken by just, you know, at the end of the day saying, well, you know, what do I got left to choose? Remain in fear and be afraid, or do I choose God and just step out there and trust that? You know, at least you have a chance with it. By trusting fear, which is part of the darkness, it forever keeps you in that that same circle going round and round and round. Nothing ever changes. But with God, you know the magic is there. You know the hope is there. Many of you have seen the magic. You have seen the signs. You know they are real. So, I strongly suggest for you to embrace that to the fullest, especially at this time. Overcome all of that fear and show others how to do it. Um, so, it's again, I know it's so easy for me to sit back here and say this stuff to many of you because I know it. But again, you've got to do this for yourself as well. You've been given enough signs, enough encouragement to let go of all the fear. Because, and that's what empowers you. And that's what's happening on the planet. It's inevitable on this surface. It does happen, but hey, you know what? The quicker everyone does it, the quicker it gets done. And we steer this thing, to what happens there through the ascension. That's why you're still here, because you're here for a reason, and a very important divine reason. And that's why so many of you that were targeted are still here, that the dark could not do anything with you. So you know that part of your prowess. So you are invincible. There is no death, and the way death is perceived is not right with most of the people on the planet. There really is no death. So, I wanted to touch on that again. The gatherings of the angels. Chase Matthews on the angel page there, he's putting out his concern about us putting our placements on the map we have created, to facilitate the future gatherings so we can see where the divine ones are at, and in close proximity to each other and get together. That strengthens you even more for those of you that know that. And for anyone that may have some apprehension left in them about showing where they're at on a map, just very quickly think that uh, if you're still at the stage that you think the darkness is after you or has control over you, well, with all the technology on the planet, on the surface, it doesn't matter where you're at. They knew and they could find you. So it's ridiculous to try to run, and remain in a state of fear. So the most powerful thing to do is to connect and gather and unite. You have the prowess. You know that God rules the day here, that the darkness no longer rules. You've seen enough of that evidence. So, with that, uh, continue your gatherings, get together, let yourself be known, shine your light, get out of those fear closets and kick the door wide open and stand out here. And, it's going to create a very, very much swifter change. And you be the peers. Many of you here, that are watching this are teachers. So, and it's always been fear is fundamental. It's key to breaking through to such an important level of your divinity where your powers as an angel come in here. So you need to kick those doors down and fear. That'd be like Trump now, beating fist down, beat them up. Beat up the door, yeah. Or you can, lovingly push it open. But get that door open and get out there. Don't let fear restrain you. It's so important. With the politics playing out, also politics is so. Politics was formed by the dark as a mechanism, of illusion to keep you in there. But politics, to the extent of Trump, trying to keep the public at a sort of an oblivious state because they are not awakened enough yet. And some of them won't be awakened to the degree to know really what is going on behind the scenes. But, you know, there is a game being played. At the end of the day, politics does not matter to us or even what Trump is doing. You know, it does not matter if the Democrats get in or the Republicans. All of this stuff can be overruled in the blink of an eye, you know, with the right stuff. Divinity always has control over this, so it doesn't matter what way it goes. It's inevitable what happens. And but you know, it's a process to ease the rest of the unawakened into a higher state of knowing in the least, you know, that because the ones that are unawakened, they need to be adjusted for a new world. And so, you know, they're eased into that even without knowing everything that's going on. And that's to limit chaos on the planet as they transition, and you know, to keep down some of the confusion. So there are strategies, you know, Trump talking out of both sides of his mouth, and you know, doing things that are not divine, like, you know, telling reporters or someone to beat up a reporter or whatever. But you know, there is a show. He is an actor as well, to the degree to facilitate um, the least chaotic transition. So, you know, he's going to be humanoid as well as part of the divinity. But at the end of the day, the divine plan is what comes through and is what's put in place. Now, getting back to the targeted thing, since 2012, anyone really targeted. Some was by the dark yet, you know, on the individual being targeted individually, but you were always protected and always are. But also since 2012, to facilitate further the awakening of ones upon the surface and increasing the numbers, some of you were uh, targets, but it was divinely orchestrated between divinity and your soul contract, that if that's what it took in part to wake you up and to steer you in the right direction to get you on your divine path, well, you know, this was done as well. But more to that, even though the ones that were targeted divinely, yes, it's to learn more about uh, the tactics that the dark use. So, you know, you were placed right in there to learn this as well, but more so to just to learn the tactics that the dark use, but then to learn how to overpower these tactics and to learn the dynamics of it so that you could share and assist others later on that went through this. So you very quickly want to take them out of the state of fear and the state of no hope and suppression, and you want to place them into their divine sovereignty and give them whatever, you know, they need, whatever they're receptive to receive in the lines of divinity and truth. So, you know, we are amidst that process now with many, and I have dealt with many of you, you know, that are watching this, and we worked on this, and being a target, and you know, the mind control things with the human part of you for some was very, very extensive, and you know, there it was let's say challenge with only a couple, I will say, to try to get them to break through to their divinity. But there were more things involved that, let's say, some of them had to go back into that rabbit hole and that darkness, and also understand that um, by beating their head against a brick wall for 1,000 times, that finally, okay, I got to do something different, right? So for some, it took that. But, others, uh, in accordance with their soul contract and what they had seen in the lines of profound experiences, it didn't take much. Once they saw the magic and knew that there was another hope there, that there was something to reach for, that that was in line with what they were, and that was aligned with God, and they decided, without even knowing all the truth, just to place their trust there with God. And what other choice did they have? And again, I'll get back to when I was that target, I did the same thing. I was an atheist and I guess agnostic, when I was in the human form. And just before my awakening. But I come to a point where I was one guy that, by the secret societies and all of this, and coming to find out that it was real. And I said, what the F can one guy do against all of this? And I was in my ignorance then, and ignorant that God was real, that God existed, and totally ignorant of what and who I really am in divinity. And so, I look back at it that it was so comical, but there come that day when, I surrendered. I was one man against, just so many, and what I thought the governments and law enforcement agencies, everything that, I was programmed to think that was there to protect me. Here I find that they're against me. I say, like, what the F? What's going on here, And and when you get to that point when you're still human, and the things that you were taught in society are there to protect you, when you find out no, they're actually the ones against you, you say, what choice do you have? What options do you have? Especially when you're an atheist and you know do not believe that God is real and that you're down here in the 3D. Like, you don't have any options. You don't think you do, but as I found from that moment, I was down to the rock bottom. I'm a fighter. I had little fear when I was still human. I'd worked on that through the years. I had fear and different things all through my human life. Yeah, but constantly, from what you would look at a logical human state and philosophical state, I would examine on my own time, what is the use of fear? But, uh, what I was doing then unknowingly was preparing myself for that very time when I awakened. But to just keep it short now, because I will tell my more of this story with an interview with someone in the future. Um, so there come that point when I was targeted, and I was involved in an extreme car chase with, I don't know, 70 to 100 different cars, or many more, and just a surreal uh, thing that happened. They were they couldn't kill me. I didn't know that, but they had tried. So where they couldn't kill me, they tried to keep me in a state of fear to try to control me, right? And it worked, but hey, I'm a stubborn guy, and when something is not right, I'll stand up against it, and that's where I was at that point. However, uh, when so I was targeted and I was suppressed. I gave up to the dark. I said, I'm one man. I said, how can I fight this injustices? I pulled on every bit of knowledge I had, every bit of strength, and the more that I would pull on and try to fight against them, the stronger they would come in. And as I said that last time, being in a car chase in the city of Dartmouth, uh, and being chased by 70 or 100 vehicles or even more. It was at that point that, I surrendered. I said I lost. But very quickly, it was only a day, not even a day when I come home, when the first incident happened, that I was visited by, let's say, an angelic one in a human form. But I didn't know what it was then. I was so paranoid. I didn't trust, and I kept my distance. And but what it was I had troubles with the phone because the dark had all the phones tapped, the computer hacked, everything. And so I had a guy. I was still, trying to fix things 3D then, and so I had a guy. I knew my phones was tapped, but they had buggered up the phone too. So I'd got a phone guy to come in. But the phone guy that come in and fixed the phones, I found out actually later there was no record of this guy, and there was a few things he said. I was paranoid. I didn't want to be tricked, but afterwards I realized that he was actually had to be an angel, and so at that time, I didn't think he was an angel. What I was looking at is, I was thinking that, okay, there's the bad guys, the dark guys, but somehow this guy belongs to the good guys here on the planet. I didn't know he was an angel because my perception then just put him as, okay, maybe there's a good group here on the planet, that's I did know there were groups, activists and whatever that stands up to the crime. I knew that, so I kind of thought he was from there. But anyways, it wasn't. He wasn't, let's say, he was divine then from any group on the surface. And just to keep that short. So yeah, but I'd give up. So, it was only me, and I had to do a lot of thinking. And I went for a drive one day, and without getting into that too deep, I said, I don't know what to do. I looked up, there was funny things happening, started to happen around me that I didn't know if it was phenomenon or what, but I had this kind of sensation that maybe God was real. So at that point, I pretty well thought I had no choice. I said to myself, what if God is real? If God is real, that will be the only way out of here if I could connect with such a higher power like that. And let me say, in short, 3 to 5 hours, for any human, I was showing some very impossible, amazing things that by the end of that, I had a fully overcast sky, and there come that eureka moment when, I said, it's got to be God, that God's got to be real. So I looked up at a fully overcast sky, just a blanket of clouds. I looked up. I said, you are real, aren't you? And all of a sudden, the clouds parted with the little hole in them where the sun come right down, just beaming right on me like a beam of light, just like, something you would watch in a movie. And my divine connection occurred at that time that I, could feel my heart and everything electrically being connected with God. And I get down on my knees and I said, I'm so glad you're real, because I thought I was here by myself. And that changed everything. Then I said, okay, I got a hope, I got a prayer, and what these bad guys did to me, they're doing to, everyone that was in the financial markets, anyone, in anyone that uses money, actually, it was all controlled. So I knew then at that point that, well, you got God beside you. He's omnipotent. He's a higher power. And he did, during my development into knowing more of who and what I was as well, I was showing just many miraculous, profound things to more so not to break me out of any fear, because I had most of that gone. And, doubt is fear. I had no doubt at that point. My focus changed to going forward, knowing what we had to do, and, to break down this corruption and all of that. So with that, I quickly got ready to begin my divine mission here. And it's a long story, and that happened in 2011, 12, something like that. So, but so because of all this and what I've seen, and the more I had found, the quicker that I'd learned the things that I was showing that were placed before me, eliminating little aspects of fear. Like, at that time, I could still be irritated a little bit and have impatience. So they were only minor fears to work on. So I was showing, how to quickly get those out of the way, really, that, they didn't serve, because I wasn't focused on little fear aspects over here. I was just introduced to the big picture of what it was, and that God was real and the strength of God. And at that time, these little things like impatience and little fear aspects, that didn't matter, because, I was quickly observing that the more I embraced my divinity, these fear things went away, that I was being automatically changed. So my process was quite different and perhaps a little bit more easier. But also, to speak my truth, I am much more than a being of divine high order, and that is what it is. And so quite a lengthy story I had in my transition, but I was targeted, and and just suppressed. And I got to tell you, the day that I knew that God was real for sure, I was one happy guy, and I have been since. And because I know the strength of God, and how the darkness after that time, they kept futilely trying. And once I knew God was there and had my back, I said, I have no fear, and you cannot intimidate me. And I would reveal them at every opportunity. And they tried a few times, but it was just very futile. And after a while, they gave up. So, well, very quickly they gave up. They still kept trying to suppress what I was doing, trying to counter it. So they really weren't attacking me at that stage. When I got through, they were trying to suppress and counter everything that I was doing to assist others and awake them further, because they were very concerned, because this is how the dark controlled, and is keeping people in a state of fear, and using the money, as one of their biggest controls. They built the societies with a reliance upon a monetary exchange, and so they got everyone placed in that. And then they have their full control, because they always controlled the money. They manipulate the markets, and the banks, and all of that stuff. So they controlled the money, which controlled you. And so this is what we're breaking, and this is part of it now with Trump, with these indictments, what it's going to expose. And it's a mixed bag, I will tell you, of indictments. And there are some things that are going to come out there that you didn't really expect, but they must, because everything must align with the ascension and the pure foundation to new beginning. You cannot have financial markets and these sort of things in the future. That stuff was built with dark and ill intent. It's rotten right to its core, and it's not in alignment with divinity and what we are going forward. and it must implode. It cannot exist in the 5D. Nobody wants this control of money, so just think of that, you know, in your heart. You want the freedom and no poverty, no sickness. This is what you want, and you feel it. This is what we're going towards. So, you know, with that, when you reflect upon that for a moment, what you desire is what we're going to get. Then, you know, financial markets and all of the foolish control by money must go. And the first stages of that transition is to at least equalize the wealth, and, you know, look on equalizing white